Hi, this is Brian Passion. Welcome to another podcast episode. I am so happy that I have Lisa Jenner. She's the Chief Revenue Officer at Dealer Alchemist. We're going to talk about a very important topic is the measurement and reporting that dealers get from their agency partners. And well, still 2022, the lack of transparency that is rampant. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brian. I'm so glad to be here.
We're going to talk about reporting. We're going to be talking about some of the changes in reporting that are coming, some changes with Google and SEO. There's a lot to cover. But before we jump into the nuts and bolts of our discussion, you were recently recognized with an Inc. 5000 award. Let's talk about that. How excited is the team at Dealer Alchemist for being recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States?
I mean, we are so excited. There's been a ton of hard work that's gone into the last 3 years, and we've had an 835% increase in growth, which has lent us to be number 761 out of 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. So it's just a testament to all of the hard work that's gone in, and it's been fun. We have an incredible team.
Well, congratulations to everyone. When we were in a kind of explosive growth mode at our agency, this is a number of years ago, we're so excited to be recognized. You never realize how good things are compared to other companies in the U.S., and that is a great honor. Lisa, at a high level, we know that dealers spend money every month on some form of marketing, and they're not trained or educated in the most part on how to audit or prove out or validate agency reports. And your company comes in and really helps, open up new data insights for dealers. Let's start at a very foundational level. How bad is it out there when you look at different vendors selling marketing services to dealers at a very high level? How accurate or how transparent are these reports that give dealers actionable insights?
I would say that it's still very frustrating. I'm doing audits with my team every single week, and the amount of dealers that are not inside of their own Google Analytics, and they're not being coached to be there, and they're not being, I use the word blindfold because it really is a blindfold to not have the full transparency inside of your own data. Just last Friday, I'm in a Google Analytics with a dealer, and their paid search terms are they're not synced to their Google Analytics. So the metrics are not built out through their conversion goals. It's quite frustrating, and it's an epidemic. That word has definitely been bastardized, but it's a problem, and I really want to help dealers solve this problem.
Well, Lisa, little over a year ago now, I published a breakthrough research report. Dealers can download that at brianpash.com on the fundamental problem that Google Ads uses goals to optimize its bidding engine. The bidding engine's super smart. As long as you feed in the outcomes that dealers want. Of course, dealers want more phone calls. They want more lead forms. They want more text and chats. But the key here was that phone call for sales or service, right? If variable ops is paying for these ad campaigns for the most part, dealers should get the signals whether or not those ads are actually bringing customers that are aligned with those ads. Yet, I go into most GA accounts, the goals aren't set up, and the agency doesn't seem to care about these signals yet. Every day I have someone else advertising they're using machine learning and AI and proprietary algorithms and first-party data. And I'm like, well, that's great, but Google Ads is a feedback loop there's no feedback loop. Lisa, what's going on here with, I think it is a laziness of not properly setting up conversion goals, right?
I think it's a benefit. It's a benefit for vendors, and a majority of them, to not have this level of transparency, because then they're really in control and they're really able to guide the spend and allocate where they may be able to, for example, receive a higher commission. Let's talk about display. I mean, we are not currently launching a ton of display because we're not seeing the conversion. I was just in a General Motors account where the tier 2 agency was launching display with 9 seconds on site. I mean, that's terrible. You can't even sneeze that fast, you
Yeah.
know? And I think too, yeah, it takes an additional amount of time. It takes additional amount of, the right person on the right team to have the education and know the technicalities of how to connect all of these metrics. But let's just take our dealer body back to, the quote that I've heard a million times over, having like grown up in this business. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if they don't have the management of this measure, if the dealer doesn't have that, then they're really not ultimately in control of an educated decision, a database decision on where to allocate their spend.
And for the dealers who are listening to today's podcast, I have a challenge for you. You may be in the car, you may be bored at a meeting, listening to the podcast, or just digging in at your desk. I want you, if you don't have your Google Analytics login, I want you to get someone from your team to log into Google Analytics. I want you to go into the goals section, and I want you to see if you have working goals. That means non-zero values for things like it was a sales phone call or a service phone call. It was a sales chat or a service chat. It was a sales text or a service text. It was a sales lead form or a service lead form. Meaning, do you have the conversion outcomes by department, number one? Number two, do you have the other key signals, like maybe they were configuring a payment in your digital retailing tool? That shows great engagement. Did they download a Carfax? That shows great interest. Meaning, how many real signals are set up? And I'm going to bet that 9 out of 10 of you will have some basic click the call, lead form. And I'm like, yeah, but what was the call for? Or what was the lead form for? Lisa, it's that crazy, right? I mean, we are spending tens of thousands of dollars on marketing, and we have these vague conversion metrics, yet these campaigns are for specific departments with specific business objectives.
Yes, and I love that you're using the word signal for conversions, because there's hard conversions, like you're saying, a form fill, a call, and then there's additional conversions, like how many people are looking at your new BDPs based on the inventory that you have? How many people are looking at your used BDPs based on the inventory that you have? Is the allocation of your new versus used budget, set based on the allocation of your inventory? What are your SRP views in those two categories? So I think too that there is some confusion at times on the word and semantics around conversion. Conversion doesn't mean attribution, but we all want to and need to, as an industry, and especially as an operator, understand the customer journey and the path. For example, Brian, when all of these channels are connected properly, we can go into secondary dimensions with the dealer's data in their Google Analytics. We can open this and show them, look, this is where your second visits are coming from. Your spike in organic traffic is coming from second visits through the social media advertising that you're doing. And now you're really understanding, why am I spending money on social? I'm seeing a lot of reports that are just talking about impressions and clicks, but does that really mean anything? And your service versus sales example is prime time for this conversation.
Well, yeah, one of the other things that has been fun to watch over the years, 7, 8 years ago, I put out the first Google Analytics standard, hoping the industry would embrace it. It really didn't happen. We'll talk about GA4 and what is happening, and it's very exciting. But I set up a list of engagement events and basically said, look, you can't force a consumer to convert to a lead or to call you, but you should be measuring their engagement level. And I'm really glad that the smarter dealer groups kind of ran with that, doing engagement scoring, and then feeding that, back. But the cool thing is when you have these goals set up and you hit the nail on the head, these assisted conversions really show that, hey, your social, people say like Facebook isn't converting well. I'm like, well, let's take a look at the assisted conversions. A lot of times the simple monthly reports that dealers see only show last click attribution. They never show the true funnel, how many people came back later and then converted. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was just reviewing a report this morning, and there's a number of large media companies that are bundling these digital packages like link building, email conquesting. There's multiple services inside the package, and then this report, specifically has everything rolled up. So it's just got a generic VDP number. It's got a generic cost number. The new thing that I'm seeing is the shiny new cost per lead number. And what I found in that specific metric is that the agencies that are rolling up the cost per lead savings, they're also including clicks from Google My Business, now Google Profile, Business Profile, and that would be considered otherwise as your free organic traffic. And so there's just a false representation inside of the bundling of one solidary number. And so what we do is we say, we have to look at this at a deeper level to understand really what's happening. Also, these proprietary reports are notorious for not including bounce rate and not including time on site. And then if you're rolling up your cost per click, you could have, and it's insane, but I have actually seen a $17 CPC spend on a model term. And then you've got a 15-cent display campaign. So when you average these numbers out, it can look really good. But what you don't see on the back end is that you're probably spending too much money on your make model terms. And so any type of bundling report is, again, it's just a blindfold.
Yeah, Lisa, I get a kick. Every once in a while, a dealer will send over and say, hey, I got this vendor pitching me, and for 10 grand a month, I'm going to get my Google spend, I'm going to get Facebook spend, I'm going to get video spend, I'm going to get display, I'm going to get a link building, I'm going to get, and it was like, are you going to get lunch and bagels every day? Right? And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Just one package price. Yeah, it's like, it's amazing. They have no idea what the margin is, what's really being spent. It's just like a package price. And then, to your point, no one asks how they define a conversion or a lead.
Correct.
And so they roll all this up and they say, well, look, man, I got you 15,000 visits to your website and so many conversions. And then I go in and it's like, hold on, they didn't set up any goals. What's a conversion? They don't have phone tracking, so they don't know where the phone calls. And to your point, they're just pretty much throwing a potpourri of metrics that are overwhelming to the dealer, and the dealer says, wow, look at all this traffic. And honestly, I think it's not genuine at all in helping to educate dealers on what's working, what's not working.
Yeah, and the truth is that it's just manipulated. It's manipulated data, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that, one, the dealer owns their analytics account. Two, they're able to do just a brief overview on a regular basis where they understand where their traffic is coming from, and we help navigate that. I really appreciate, because at Dealer Alchemist, and you as well, we are all in the same ethos of building these metrics out for the dealer. So when we actually get an account, we go in and make sure everything's connected properly, including the Google ad campaign. If your Google ad campaign is not connected, then you can't actually see the amount that's truly being spent for each campaign that you're running.
That's right.
If you're just only receiving a report on that, then I promise you there's some hidden things inside of that as well. For example, we've even seen where there are make model campaigns that inside of those campaigns, they're running brand regional terms just to kind of spoof the numbers and make those look better. So it's very, very important that dealers have this built out properly, and we're here to help with that as well. And then to make sure that everything is connected properly and there's nothing funky or being manipulated in the back end.
You know, I appreciate the work that you're doing. It obviously supports my lifelong work of education and transparency. It kind of brings us to GA4, the new version of Google Analytics that will be a requirement next year. Right now, the date's July. It may get pushed back a few months, but unlike my previous attempts to set some standards for universal analytics, we have a clean slate opportunity for GA4. And I'm proud to say that 80 plus companies have joined the Automotive Standards Council for GA4, an organization I created to create the first transparent, scalable, and interoperable standards for tagging consumer engagement and conversions. And I'm really glad that Dealer Alchemist is on the council. We are making great progress. Lisa, as you're talking with your clients about GA4, obviously this will be new for everyone, right? This is new. If the vendor community embraces GA4 and the standards that we are proposing, it's going to be a breakthrough for companies like yours, because now we're going to finally have all the data points to compare apples to apples, meaning one website platform to another, one digital retailing tool to another, because all the event names, all the conversion standards will be the same.
Yes, and it's long overdue. And this is really, really an advocacy for the dealers, because now we're getting to a place where, and it's time to demand that this is just a prerequisite to do business together. Google announced in October of 2020 that they would be rolling out GA4. We started looking at it very intently at that time and just increased our intent of understanding what the changes were going to be. We started rolling GA4 into our accounts early on. I've still talked to, believe it or not, some marketing directors that work inside of dealer groups and dealerships who don't know what GA4 is. And in July of next year, what everyone needs to understand is that Google Analytics as we know it is going to disappear, and you will lose all of your historic data if you do not have GA4 implemented right now. And the measurements and metrics that you're talking about instituting as a whole is going to be imperative to be able to see year over year history. With the changes that are coming and the privacy laws that are adjusting, it's getting harder to track consumer behavior. I talked about that in my Radical Truth post on LinkedIn last week. But GA4, there's not going to be any use of cookies, and they're also going to start implementing cross-device measurements. So right now, they don't know if I'm on my phone and my tablet and my computer, that's counting me as 3 individuals, for example. And now they'll be able to consolidate into one. So there's going to be some big number shifts. And I think it's so important for the dealer body to be educated on these.
For sure. And one of the things that dealers who are listening to today's podcast need to understand that GA4 out of the box is worthless. It doesn't really have much in place for the way car dealers work, because we're not in the e-commerce business. There's a lot of support for e-commerce. And that's why working with the vendor community to make sure every click, every swipe, every form fill, every chat and text is being tracked. And it really brings up one very critical component, Lisa, that you and I know agree on, is dealers, if you're spending money on digital marketing that's driving people to your website, you need to have call measurement and call accounting software in place, because the new GA4 standard that we're writing will provide feedback loops that say, not just click the call. Click the call means someone clicked. It doesn't mean the call connected. In the new standard for your AdWords campaigns, for your Facebook campaigns, for your email campaigns, we're going to know, did the call connect? Was the call a connection for over 30 seconds, meaning some dialogue? Was an appointment set? Was this a sales opportunity or a service opportunity? I mean, this is a breakthrough. So dealers, as you're looking as your 2023 budgets, if you are not using technology that listens to the phone calls, you don't have to do it. Listens to the phone calls and determines an outcome and sends them back to GA4. Please make that investment, because Lisa, the proof in 2023 is going to be the crappy traffic will be absolutely exposed, because bots that are clicking click to call, or people who are saying this is how many phone sales calls you got. I mean, light is coming that they're going to say, hey, this traffic wasn't engaged and those phone calls were mostly for service, not for sales. You know, Mr. Agency, you are not helping me sell more cars. You're just buying my name and buying geoterms and blowing up my service drive.
Correct. Thanks for that. That's so good. That is definitely happening in our market right now.
And it's great to know that your team will be ready. As part of the council, you see all the events that are coming, and I want to give kudos to the early adopters. I know that the folks at Dealer On and Dealer Inspire and Dealer eProcess, when we talk about website companies, Synchro, they're the primary thrower of events, right? So these companies are really leaning in, and in September and October, we'll start throwing these events even before the spec is published. So folks like you and me can start building reports. And then we have the DR companies, we have the call tracking companies, we have the chat companies. This is going to be a big, big celebration. And all of this will really be culminating for the Modern Retailing Conference in November in Palm Beach, because the spec will be released. We'll have 5 classes. I'm hoping that the team from Dealer Alchemist will also be able to share some reporting examples that you've built. We're going to be having workshops where members of the council can showcase their work. Lisa, I hope your team can, and maybe even demonstrate the new insights that we can get from GA4.
Yes, and this is just so much in alignment with what we've already been doing. I mean, the fact that we come in and build out 22 conversion goals for dealers in our accounts currently, and have been doing that for a few years now. I mean, this is just right in alignment. The fact that you've built a council that is now bringing on other dealer vendors, this is imperative. And so we are more than stoked and excited. We are thinking and saying it's about time. Now we can take everything that we currently build and we can add to, and we can have deeper levels of measurement, and then we can also make the necessary adjustments to be able to educate dealers on GA4 as well. So yeah, we're more than ready.
That's great. And I will tell you that even tools like VistaDash are jumping up and down, because they've been having to manually tag every single client. And then someone corrupts the GTM container, and then all hell breaks loose. I know, Lisa, same thing with your team. You know, all the work we've been doing manually to create Google Tag Manager containers, all of that really will be removed. That burden, those loopholes, those corruption points where data is going to be flowing freely. Lisa, when somebody asks you, dealer comes up at a conference and says, hey, what does Dealer Alchemist do? How do you summarize that so the dealers listening to today's podcast, obviously they know you're passionate about transparency and helping dealers optimize their marketing, but how do you describe your mission and services for dealers?
So we're a turnkey digital advertising company, specializing in automotive through paid search, technical SEO, social advertising. We do OTT, and then we really support the dealer. We manage their website. We support their creative, and we do like a CRM email blast for them every month, just in support of them. We also provide a high level of consulting through the measurement and metrics, everything that we're talking about today. And I would say, like, in summary, we've developed our own technology called Core, which is a responsive technology where we really prioritize the dealer, what he has in inventory, the product. And it's really an approach based on how consumers want to buy today. And then just obviously, we'd always talk about transparency. So right now, I think with everything that's happened over the course of the last 2 years, we had companies that were built for new car advertising, especially some of the larger OEM programs were built for new car advertising. Inside of the pivot that needed to happen, not everybody adjusted, but we did. And so prioritizing the inventory over spending a ton of money on your brand regional location terms, your dealer name, your dealership test drive near me, we're prioritizing online presence for the inventory that you have in stock and in transit for both new and used. And so that was really the pivot that we made, for dealers. So yeah, that would be my summary. There's a lot in there, but
Yeah, no,
talk about.
No, the key here is an agency that wants to educate the dealer, be transparent in reporting metrics, understanding that maybe the dealer has some other relationships with other pieces of the marketing puzzle. No problem. Let's just hold everyone accountable to the same standard so that on monthly calls, hey, the dealer has another email marketing company. Great. Let's just measure performance. Hey, the dealer is working with a local cable company on OTT. No problem. Let's just measure performance. I think that approach allows for a more collaborative experience between the dealer agency relationship. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. And there's also two kind of, it seems, trains of thought. There's the dealer body that wants to see their dealership name when they're searching on Google. And my question to you is that pulling in a potential, mid to low funnel buyer, or is that somebody that's looking to service their vehicle? And then the other segment would be, I want my vehicles to be at the, have the most relevancy and have the highest ranking. And so we are in the path of pushing the inventory and pushing the product for sure.
Right. Well, we know based on our research, in the research report that we released on Google Ads last year, that when dealers buy their name or just geo terms, Honda dealer near me, the majority of those phone calls, over 80% of those phone calls, are all for service. So that's why having call outcomes as I'm going to say, table stakes for dealers going forward, especially since the GA4 standard will now have call outcomes by department as a conversion goal. That's a breakthrough. And all of this, really, measurement is so important, and it's one of the 5 tracks, educational tracks at the Modern Retailing Conference in November. There's something for everyone. For general managers, we have a sales process track. For marketing professionals, we have the GA4 workshop track with 5 workshops. For people that are in the hiring, we have a whole new HR track. For people who are in the creative brand building, brand awareness, dealers are really leaning on. We have a whole new track for creative professionals, and of course, our standard marketing track. So the Modern Retailing Conference will be in Palm Beach, November 13th, 14th, and 15th. Lisa, is your team excited about being in Palm Beach and at the conference where we're going to unveil the GA4 specification?
Absolutely. Any opportunity that we have to grow, improve, and bring transparency to our dealer body, we get very excited about. So we are absolutely stoked to be there.
Great. And I just want to remind dealers, if you haven't registered for the conference, just go to modernretailingconference.com. This is the best use of your time. This is jam-packed education, industry leaders, the best people in all aspects of the retail process will be there. So this is the opportunity to, well, really think what 2023's retail strategy could look like, implementing modern sales processes, modern marketing, new accountability measures, as Lisa and I have been talking about, and new ways to attract and retain employees. It's all part of the Modern Retailing Conference. So go to modernretailingconference.com and get your tickets and book your hotel before the room block expires. One last thing, if this is the first time you're listening to one of my podcasts, you should know that I've interviewed dozens of industry leaders, disruptors, educators, and people like Lisa who are trying to change the mentality by creating greater accountability for all members of the automotive retail community. And so you can listen to those podcasts on the Apple Podcast channel, Google Play Store, SoundCloud, or you can go to brianpash.libsyn, that's LIBSYN.com, to see all of the podcasts. We want to thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on another podcast session.